It's J Talk. Let's talk about backup bottles. Backup bottles of fragrance. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's pretty self-explanatory, but it just means you have an extra bottle of any given fragrance in your collection. There's a myriad of reasons as to why someone would have backup bottles, but predominantly it's mostly because you either just love that fragrance and never want to be without it, or maybe it's discontinued or feared to be discontinued soon and you want to stock up, or you like to hoard different batches because with some fragrances, there can be some variations. Should you get backup bottles? I don't know, it's up to you. But really, from a practicality standpoint, I'm not too convinced it's always worth it. I have had quite a few backup bottles of different fragrances, and I'll tell you what, I sold most of them. When you're a collector at, I guess, the level that I'm at, you really don't go through very many bottles of fragrances. At this stage in my fragrance collecting journey, I have stopped going through full bottles of fragrances. Straight up. Now there was a point where I had a pretty lean rotation and I would go through some bottles pretty regularly and then I would restock. Once I discovered La Nuit de l'Homme, I was crazy about it and I decided, well, I'm obviously gonna be wearing this for the rest of my life. So I bought 3 200 ml bottles. I think the biggest factor when deciding whether or not you should buy a backup bottle of something is, do you actually go through your bottles? Is your collection small enough, or do you love that fragrance enough that you definitely will go through it? Because if it hasn't been discontinued, it'll still be there once you do go through it. If it is discontinued, you still may be able to find it then. Yeah, it'll be more expensive, but if you think about all the money you could lose buying backup bottles and then selling them for perhaps cheaper, it makes financial sense to me not to buy backup bottles. You really have to be honest with yourself and find out the real reason why you need that backup bottle. Is it because you're thinking ahead and being responsible and making sure that you have the appropriate amount of fragrance? Or are you just kind of desperately hoarding as much as you can? That's how I felt, at least. With the size of my collection and the frequency at which I rotate my fragrances around, I don't see myself going through any more bottles, period. And honestly, at this point, once I do eventually go through a bottle, I may not want a backup. I would much rather look for the next new fragrance and replace it with something even more innovative. Except for Naxos, I'm just gonna buy like 10 of those, so. At the end of the day, it's obviously your money, it's your shelf space, it's your decision. You don't need 5 bottles of this now. It's not going anywhere. All of our links to the Facebook group, Snapchat, and Instagram are down below. And if you like what you see, then go ahead and subscribe and like this video. This is the end of my J Talk, but let's keep that talk going in the comments below. What are your thoughts on backup bottles? Peace.